Have you ever wanted to run a contest or a giveaway to build up awareness in your community? Maybe you're trying to run these on social media or your website. You're doing something to pull in an audience and get their attention and get their interaction and engagement. There are some legal things you need to be aware of before you jump into this to make sure that you are safe and protected and doing things that actually work with the FTC regulations. So today, we're talking to everybody's favorite IP and entertainment lawyer, Tony, to learn more.
My name is Tony Iliakostas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that is dedicated to all things intellectual property.
One of the things that we love to do, Tony, to get awareness on our social platforms, on our websites, and in our brands is to run contests and giveaways. But there's a lot of legal things that go into creating these contests, giveaways, and lotteries to make sure that everything is copacetic and that we are legally protected. So can you break down these entities for us and tell us what we need to know to make sure we're not doing it wrong?
Absolutely. So first, let's just address that these definitions of these types of events, if you will, you want to call it that, are all set by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. They're the governing body that is basically responsible for making sure that antitrust activity doesn't take place. That's also along with the SEC, of course, but certainly antitrust activity. But mainly, their end game is to prevent consumer fraud. So mainly, that's why they're so governing over what sweepstakes contests and lotteries exist out there in the ether. So what's the distinction between all of them? Let's start with lotteries. Lotteries are definitely games of chances, right? They're random drawings, if you will, but there's usually monetary consideration involved with them. That's distinguished from giveaways, where there isn't usually monetary consideration. You may have a social media influencer out there who says, I'm giving away, a grab bag filled with $200 worth of goods. Usually there's no need to submit some type of monetary consideration. They may ask for some type of consideration, and I'm using it loosely by way of comment and tag your friends, that type of consideration. Basically, that's the entry into the giveaway. And then we have contests. Contests are usually games of skill, if you will. And the way it works is you do have to, again, give some type of consideration, but I'm using it loosely. In this case, it's usually something that would allow the person who's conducting the contest to evaluate entries and decide based on that who is deserving of a win. So it's not really a game of chance at that point. They're actually reviewing all entries. So each of these types of events have their own governing rules. But the bottom line is the FTC usually lays out the guidelines for each of them. And I would say for the purposes of, social media and, the influencer space, content creation space at large, the contests and the giveaways are going to be more relevant. Lotteries are obviously, they're a bit more regulated. Think of state lotteries, if you will. I think it's best to kind of stay away from those types of giveaways. If you're ever thinking about that, stick to the kosher ones, which are contests and giveaways.
That makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned that there are certain considerations that people have to do in order to enter with this. When we're looking specifically at social media, we see a lot of influencers, a lot of content creators running these types of events and saying you have to comment, you have to like, you have to share. What do we need to know about that to make sure we're actually doing that correctly? Because we understand that there are guidelines by the FTC, but also by those terms and services for the social platforms. Are we allowed to do things like this, or do we need to worry about that?
Yeah, people are allowed to do giveaways and sweepstakes, if you will, or contests, more generally speaking. But the trick is to make sure that you're abiding by FTC guidelines. And like I said, there are certain legal disclaimers that need to be made. So, for example, because you're hosting, let's say, a giveaway on social media, all 50 states are going to be affected by it. So you're going to need to disclose, a rule that says basically, check your local state's rules on giveaways or contests. So you're putting the onus on the person participating in that contest to basically assess what is allowed in their jurisdiction. Again, like I said, void where prohibited. We don't know what the heck that means. I don't know what that means, but that's what the FTC wants us to write. These are legal parameters and measures to protect the consumer. That's the whole point of the FTC in the first place, because consumer fraud exists and it's rampant. It is to the point that the FTC has prosecuted in coordination with the government, of course, but they've been on the forefront in the prosecution of tons of fraudsters and scammers out there who have basically manipulated the word giveaway and contest as essentially a money laundering scheme or some other type of measure to defraud a consumer. So I think it's important to note that when you're working in this type of space, if you're an influencer, making sure that if you go visit ftc.gov, you check out all the rules on guidelines, giveaways, things of that sort. That will help you get an idea of what you're doing right and wrong. And if you have any questions, they actually are very accessible to reach out to, and they have a hotline that you could always contact if you ever needed additional questions. And if you are the victim of consumer fraud, the FTC also has a hotline as well, so you can report consumer fraud, and you could also do the same on a website. But we don't want consumer fraud. We're trying to do things legally, of course. So I think abiding by those guidelines is imperative. And for the most part, as long as you're doing it right by, laying out the rules clearly, you're not leaving any room for ambiguity whatsoever, you're definitely going to be in total, you're not going to be in trouble, essentially. That's what I'm trying to say.
So when it comes to disclosing this information before we are running these contests, what is that going to look like for us? Do we need to be posting this in our caption? Do we need to put this on our website? Where do we need to actually put the information so that people can access it before we do this to stay legally protected?
Yeah, so I think that if you're doing, let's say, an Instagram post or even like a TikTok post, making this information very clear in the caption of the video is imperative. Even if you have an opportunity to post it within the video itself, we know those types of little guidelines and provisions are always in like super fine font. Even if you did it that way on a post, I mean, that would be within the post itself, the video itself, that would be, I think, absolutely fine as well. Actually, it would be encouraged to have both places, so it's very clear that you've disclosed everything. And just to show you like how important disclosure is, not directly related to giveaways or contests, but the FTC has also gone after influencers for not even disclosing #ad or #sponsored in their caption. When they're doing some type of branded partnership or collaboration with another brand, they usually, give some goods and, they review the product and they, provide like the promo code, right? So those types of, situations where that happens, the FTC has gone after those influencers and hard, to the point that they penalize them and fine them if they're not complying with those rules correctly. So the FTC loves to see #ad, #sponsored at the start of the caption before you even go into like the rest of it. So I think in the same vein, when you're working with, when you're in the space of doing giveaways, contests, sweepstakes, having everything laid out in clear fashion so that there's no room for ambiguity, that's going to be really, really imperative. And essentially, it's what's going to make you FTC compliant in a situation like that.
And so we want to make sure that if we are progressing forward and we're going to do a contest or a giveaway, that we are checking out the FTC website, making sure we are following all the rules and regulations, making sure we are fully disclosing all information relevant to these giveaways. And then if you really aren't sure, if you're not certain, it's always wise to go and talk to your lawyer to make sure that you are completely protected in this. Tony, anything else we need to know about these contests and giveaways?
I think I cannot underline anymore what you just said about contacting a lawyer, because I think with social media content, generally speaking, and giveaways and contests, this is a very unique space. And it's odd for me to even say that, because social media has been around, I would say, on a more consistent, popular basis since maybe 2004 with the birth of Facebook, or even MySpace. I'll go that far back. Yeah. With the developments that have gone on with all these different social media platforms, and with the evolution of that, with it coming content creation, content consumption, so on and so forth, you want to make sure that you're doing everything that's legally sound. And yes, sometimes the laws and rules are a bit ambiguous, that it's a little bit more of the Wild Wild West. But working with an attorney who specializes in specifically, branded partnerships, or social media law issues like this, or certainly financial matters like this that go hand in hand. Having their consultation and expertise is going to be very, very important to make sure that you're following all the guidelines that the FTC wants to see when you're doing a giveaway, contest, sweepstakes, or anything of that sort.
So we are safe and clear to be creating contests and giveaways inside of our businesses on social media and off social media, as long as we are following the rules and we make sure we understand those rules before we jump into this creation. With that in mind, if you have questions, go ahead and drop those down below. Tony's coming back for even more episodes so we can get those questions answered for you. But if you just can't wait to hang out with Tony, he is available on social media. So Tony, where can everybody hang out with you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at the IP Professor.
If you have questions or comments on running those contests or giveaways on your platform, go ahead and drop those down below and hit that subscribe and notification bell so that you do not miss our daily videos helping you to level up in the social media marketing scheme of things to make sure that you're making more money online but spending less time doing it so you can get back to running your business and living your best life. We want to make sure that we're helping with your conversational questions, so drop them down below and we'll see you in our upcoming episodes to help you level up in your industry.